Hey, it's me, that Chiao guy again, and I get to talk some more about Grisaia. For those of you who haven't been around my channel very long, I absolutely loved the Fruit of Grisaia, which is the anime this special carries off of. What I thought would only be, for the most part, a very funny anime of a great protagonist suddenly turned into one of the best drama anime I've ever seen. Characters who at first seem very basic soon become so extremely likable, sympathetic, and interesting after we learn more about them. Which, combined with this anime's unpredictable dark nature, it was able to fuel some amazing tension. The result of all of this made the anime have very sympathetic characters whose struggles were so extremely easy to find yourself invested in. There was not a single note of a good drama that the Fruit of Grisaia missed. Anyway, I'll stop fanboying over the anime for the most part, because I have a whole review you can watch for that. Now, out of all the characters from the original anime, Yuji was really the only one of them that didn't have a massive amount of time devoted to his backstory. Which for the anime was fine since he had so many things that made him distinguished as a character, with the main reason being just how unique and cynical his personality and interactions are. This, combined with how brilliant and or strange some of his plans really are, strongly present the mystery, interest, and definability of his character. Some of the many scenes that come to mind for an example is that he is the type of guy who will casually react to getting attacked, the multiple of original and defining sarcastic remarks he makes, and how he contributes to the drama by helping the other characters in what they are dealing with. Even without an expansive backstory, Yuji is still one of my favorite protagonists out there. And luckily I can say this short did contain a lot of positives that the original anime had. Although I still see it as being very good, and definitely better than a lot of the stuff your average anime will do, I would still say that it does have some problems. Also, keep in mind that this short is basically just a duct tape add-on to the original anime since it is a bit less than an hour. So in tandem, this review will also be somewhat of an add-on and definitely shorter than my average review. Editor's note, after writing the script, that might not be so true, by the way. Way to go, me. First things first, one of the things that the Labyrinth of Grisaia does well is set up Yuji's life. The presentation of his family relationship and how it is affected by his sister being a borderline prodigy is effectively used to help further the quality of the plot. We get to see how this brings fame and fortune to their family, and how this leads the parents to play extreme favoritism. And lastly, the psychological effect this puts on Yuji for practically being completely neglected. Which helps present the first sign of the massive amount of sympathy we're going to be getting for Yuji throughout this whole short. Next up, the anime short that I don't know if it wants to be called a special short anime movie thing, whatever, does a pretty good job, for the most part, of presenting the interactions between Yuji and his sister. Seeing his sister being the only one to be nice and supportive to him, even at the cost of the approval of her parents, helps to create some likability for her. Not to mention, this gives Yuji someone to promote and justify his sense of loss as his life spirals out of control, along with one of the many justifications to his personality change. Okay, so that's the good part about their interactions, but here's the start of my only major complaint. I think most of you know where this is going now. Hopefully no one walks in on you and gets the wrong idea, I'm just saying. Alright, let's get this over with. The poorly handled part of this special is that Yuji's sister, who could not be any older than 12 years old at this time, might I add, tries to take a bath with Yuji to seduce him. Yes, you heard that right, and no, it's not the innocent type of young love I have no idea what it is, / type getting married is just some fun, wacky, young type kid thing, whatever. But rather it comes off as the creators just trying to push their creepy fetishes in your face. Okay, at least Yuji is acting somewhat like a normal kid, but his sister on the other hand is acting like an adult woman trying to sexually seduce someone. Okay guys, pro writing tip here. A normal little girl does not try to seduce her younger brother, and to say it comes off as unnatural and forced is an understatement. Yeah, there's a reason that normal little kids don't go around with super strong sexual thoughts, guys, and nonetheless act on them. You can't just portray this like it doesn't need justification. One of the most important things in a story is giving the characters motivation so that they may seem real and believable, which are two words I would definitely not use to describe this scene. But what I'm saying here is not that this interaction is impossible, but rather we need to know why it is happening. There is not a single reason why his sister would want to sexually seduce him with full knowledge of this being a taboo. The only half-baked reason they seem to try to give out is that she finds sympathy and cares about Yuji, but that is definitely not enough to justify this extreme action. I mean, there are some obvious questions you need to address here, guys. Such as, why would Yuji's sister want to, or even think it's a good idea to seduce her younger brother? I don't know. Why does she seem to have a borderline psychological obsession with him? I don't know. All of these problems stem from the fact they never show anything about the mindset of Yuji's sister and her motivation behind her actions. All we get is the very out-of-place seduction scene, and that's it. And lastly, you can't blame her life events affecting her because she isn't physically abused, isn't living in extreme conditions, and isn't being mentally damaged. This whole thing is about as deep as a writing scene where a person who's been a law-loving citizen their whole life finds a burger joint that forgot to put ketchup on their meal, and as a result, murders all the employees. In the end, any justification and believability is completely absent, which kind of results in destroying any value this could have had as a dark plot point. But rather, it comes off as the creators trying to shove a fetish aspect into the plot. Now that I'm done recording the most uncomfortable paragraph I've ever written in my life, I don't want to give off the vibe that this one scene killed the whole short. Yes, it is definitely really bad and should have been cut or at least given a lot more thought put into it. But it only takes up a small amount of screen time, which is only 3 minutes might I add, is quickly forgotten, and the rest of the short contains a lot of the great elements that make Grisaia so amazing. With the overarching point being just how it keeps getting progressively darker and darker, its psychological approach, how well justified it is, and how this all corresponds with how sympathetic Yuji gets for going through all this. The first thing I liked about this part of the anime is that it had justification. Yuji's decline of happiness is not just because the writers said so, but rather we are given a logical reason as to why, and in turn it makes it feel so much more realistic. This may seem like a small part to praise, but let's keep in mind what part did not have this. Next up, if you thought some of the stuff in the Fruit of Grisaia was dark, the Labyrinth of Grisaia is able to one-up it. And considering some of the stuff that's in the original, that's quite impressive. To say that Yuji gets psychologically and physically abused might not paint a clear enough picture. We're talking about sociopathic levels of abuse here. But like any smart show, they are not just there to be there, since they play a major role in presenting the psychological elements and giving legitimate reasons to the death of Yuji's normal personality. And those elements can be anything from the abusive actions of others or the psychological struggle he has in seeing himself change. Especially as some of the events seem to be custom made to tear apart Yuji psychologically. With a clear example being the trauma and regret that overlays with plot points such as about Yuji's mother and a girl he ends up meeting. Not to mention, this makes him so very likable to be forced to go through all this madness and creates very strong sympathy, with all of this stemming from what that level of madness and abuse was. The result of all this, which is the clear highlight of the short, finally gave me that feeling of complete investment I had when watching the original anime, as the show creates a wonderfully dark, psychological, interesting, and unpredictable story that can easily capture someone's attention. Now, to be honest, I do have some small complaints with the story itself, but keep in mind that these are nitpicks and are nowhere close to ruining the short. First off, there was a bit too much shoehorned in exposition. Now, I get this is him retelling his past, so there is some room for some exposition, but it isn't integrated completely seamlessly. Sometimes it randomly intersects the flow of the plot by having Yuji explain what he was feeling or just having him rush through events. Which leads to my next slight complaint is that this short could have benefited from being extended about a half an hour. Then they could have cut out the glaring exposition and really been able to dive into the mindset of Yuji's father and how Yuji has to adjust to all the horrible things that happened to him. Although, to be fair, this is more of a reason as to why I'm claiming this short not to be as good as the original Fruit of Grisaia. Since wanting more isn't a problem they claim Abomination so long as the anime isn't missing foundational points. Which, to call the well-crafted psychological development of Yuji's life bad just because I wanted more is being a bit nitpicky. Even if the father could have had more focus, he still has legitimate reasons to act and a realistic psychological decline. And even if Yuji's change of life could have had more time devoted to it, doesn't mean that his psychological struggle that is extremely sympathetic and justified is automatically bad. In conclusion, this short is a good addition to the Fruit of Grisaia. It follows in suit of its predecessor by having very sympathetic characters intertwined with a tension-filled plot. And so long as you're able to look past the one poorly constructed point with Yuji's sister that only takes up a minute amount of screen time by the way, you will be presented with a very psychological story that uses its dark elements to create suspense and well thought out complexity to Yuji's character. Sure, the Fruit of Grisaia overall might have a stronger story and stronger drama, but this one isn't that far off. And if you want to compare this to some of the normal anime out there, this one is a good leap ahead of them. And lastly, if you were a fan of the original anime, this is something you definitely don't want to skip. Hello and welcome to the realm of Endslate. It's time for me to give out the whole video thing again. First up, we have my review of Your Lie in April. And second up, we have my review of Death Parade. And just because I'm feeling happy today, I'll even throw in my original review of the Fruit of Grisaia. Because I will continue to hark on the Fruit of Grisaia until people finally care about it, or at least try it, or at least recognize its existence, or at least... I'm just going to be talking about this to the end of time, aren't I? Never mind. Sequel's coming out. I'll watch that. I'll probably arc on that too. So, you're not getting out of this anytime soon, I'm just saying. In short, this anime short... Did I really just write that? In short, this anime short... I hate myself.